You're most welcome, everyone. It's now top of the hour. I'd like us to... Oh, thank you. Oh, Balam has joined us.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Finally.
I need help. I cannot start my video because the host has stopped it. Could you please host? Ubalam, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
I know it's in the ungodly hours where you are in the United States.
I've made it somehow, thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. This to me shows so much your love for the Nile.
Oh.
Yeah, so thank you. I hope you're not going to interrupt or to disturb other people's sleep, because I'm sure
hopefully so.
house are sleeping. Yes. All right, so let's start this webinar. Once again, welcome everybody to this webinar on the role of the media creating an enabling environment for Nile cooperation. This is under the 6th Nile Basin Development Forum. This webinar started way back in March with various topics, and they will be ending towards the end of this month. It's a pleasure to have you all, and I would like us to go straight to the business for today. But for those that have just joined us, please go ahead and type your name and your affiliation. And as I said earlier on, if you have a question, use the Q&A facility, and these will be responded to when the time comes. Without any much ado, I would like to invite our first speaker, and that is Emmanuel. I will first of all like to introduce who our speaker is. Emmanuel Fantini, thank you very much for joining this webinar all the way from the Netherlands.
Thank you. Well,
you're most welcome. Emmanuel is a senior lecturer and researcher at IHE Delft, Institute of Water Education, in the Department of Water Governance. He holds a PhD in political science and a European Master in Human Rights and Democratization, University of Padua. Emmanuel's research interests include water governance, water conflict, and the human right to water, social movements, religion in public spaces, politics and development, media studies, visual research methods with geographic focus on Ethiopia, the Nile Basin, and Italy. He's committed to public engagement and crossover projects with artists and journalists. He coordinates the open water diplomacy, media science and transboundary cooperation in the Nile Basin project, and hosts the Sources of the Nile and Water Alternatives podcasts. Emmanuel is the editor of the IHE Delft Water Governance blog. Some of you might have already been following Emmanuel, and we are so happy that he has been able to join us. I hope your son is well, because feeling much better now. So please, Emmanuel, go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
good morning, everyone. Thanks, Jane, for the introduction. I would like to greet and welcome all the journalists and researchers that have joining us and are typing their names, countries, and also background in the chat. I was wondering if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Do you see it in the presentation mode or in the...
No, it's not in presentation mode. Please put it in presentation mode. Thank you.
Okay, resume slide. I don't know why.
It's good now. Oh, no.
Oh.
No.
Was it good?
Yes.
You're lost.
Then I have to reopen it, sorry. So what I'm going to do today is to present a few findings from research on Nile media narratives that we've been busy with in the past few years. So let me try again.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know why you see it in this way.
Can you go to the top of your screen? Yes, that option of display settings. Display settings. Open that menu. Click on it.
Beautiful.
Display.
Thank you very much. I think now you should see it. So,
Yes,
as said
Not
by
yet.
Jane, my name is Emanuele Fantini and I work in the Netherlands at IHE Delft Institute for Water Education. I'm very happy to be here with you to co-host with the Nile Basin Initiative this webinar. Also thanks to the support of the Global Partnership for Water Education, which is funded by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. As said, today I would like to present a research which was a joint effort by this research team that I would like to acknowledge first of all. It's a multinational and multidisciplinary research team who has been exploring the different narratives in media in different countries in the Nile Basin. And I'm starting with this because working with them has been not only a pleasure, but also a learning experience. It has been an exercise in what in academia we call reflexivity. So reflecting on our role, both as a consumer of news and also as a producer of news about the Nile, because sometimes we were interviewed by journalists, we were closely working with journalists, we were even asked to write opinion pieces on the Nile. So by looking at the media and how they write and they speak about the Nile, was looking at the media was also a good exercise to reflect on ourselves and our role as a researcher and also as a consumer of news. And of course, it was also a political statement, an exercise, a small exercise in water diplomacy in itself. So for instance, this photo was taken at the International Conference on Ethiopian Studies that was held in Mekelle in October 2018. And it was the first time at this conference that has a story, I think has more than 50 years old, the conference. So it was the first time that Egyptian researchers were co-presenting with Ethiopian colleagues on Nile issues at the conference. So it was in itself, the research, a small exercise in water cooperation, in Nile cooperation and water diplomacy. What we did, we explore, so there is this general assumption that media plays a big role in shaping water conflict and water cooperation, that they influence public debate, public discourses, but such ideas were not grounded on detail and empirical research and evidence. So we started by looking at the mainstream, the official discourses in mainstream media, and we selected two media outlet per countries in the Blue Nile, in the Eastern Nile Basin, so in Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia. We added Uganda to get a basin-wide perspective, also someone from a country that was not and is not directly involved in negotiation around the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. And we also added what we call global media, media outlet that aim at reaching a global audience like The Guardian or Al Jazeera. And for all those media outlets, we sample articles from 2013 till 2018. For the first 3 years, we collected articles around key events. They were mostly related to the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Here you can see the events, the key events that we selected to make sure that there was enough critical mass of material, of articles to be studied. And then for the last 3 years, we decided, okay, in order not to have too much bias toward the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and also toward the political events around the Nile and its infrastructure, let's sample randomly. So we selected a period in the year, and we checked how the media outlets were reporting on the Nile issues. And today I would like to share with you 3 main points that came out from that research. So the first point is about facts versus emotion. I remember at the last development forum in Kigali, in a session similar to this one, of course, which was held on land, not online, but I mean, the topic and maybe also some of the people in the room were the same. So the session was devoted to media, to civil society and its participation. I remember there were several people complaining that media were focusing on emotions, were reporting opinions instead of reporting facts and scientific data and information. So there was, the 2 things were presented as alternative, facts or emotions. In our research, we learned that facts cannot be separated from emotions. And I would like to make an example here about how history is used in the media. Journalists used a lot, plenty of reference to history to frame Nile issues. And here, for instance, you have an example from The Guardian that to introduce to its global audience the issue of the Nile start from the pyramids and the pharaohs. And I think it's quite clear the message, the narrative, which is suggested through this historical reference. So when it comes to the Nile, Egypt has a glorious past, the pharaohs, the pyramid, but a dark future because of the Gerd. Pyramids, pharaohs, those are an historical fact. But the way they are used here, they elicit emotions, both among the international audience. For instance, everyone knows the pyramid. I studied in primary school. I remember I was fascinated when I was 8 years old and I started to study history in primary school. We started from the pyramids, the pharaohs. So it elicits emotions. It elicits emotions in international audience, but also, of course, it elicits emotion among other, within other riparian countries. And for instance, a few weeks later,
experiencing a bad connection. Sorry, is it here the secretariat?
No, it's
Sorry?
okay.
Very clear, yes, very clear.
Thank you. So
Sorry,
these,
Emmanuel,
yes.
I don't seem to get you.
Jen, the problem is at your end. Patrick will come to sort it out.
can I?
Please
Yeah.
continue.
Okay, thank you. So you see, a few weeks later, Maza Mengistu, who is an Ethiopian writer, novelist, and by the way, she published last year a beautiful book about Ethiopia and the war against the Italian. But here she's focusing on the fact that the Nile belongs to Ethiopia too. So her point is Ethiopia too has an history and a culture and an identity which is deeply shaped by the Nile. So you see, facts cannot be separated from emotions, including the emotions of those who analyze the media. Therefore, I think, and this is my first point, the issue should not be how to avoid emotions, how to keep emotions out of the media, out of the reporting, but rather which emotions do we want to elicit, or which emotion should the media elicit when it comes to the Nile to promote mutual understanding and a culture of cooperation. Because we saw different emotions: fear, hunger, grievances, happiness. So which emotions do we want to elicit through our media reporting and our engagement with the media? So that's my first point. My second point is about voice. We try to map whose voices are summoned or are interviewed, are heard in the media when it comes to the Nile. Which voices are used to build, to legitimize, to reinforce narratives, and also to suggest which voices are suggesting the emotions that should be associated to the river and its infrastructure. And as you can see, this is a compiled chart with all the articles in all the media. And as you can see, the overwhelming majority of interviews or quotes or voice belongs to politicians, which is the gray bar. Second comes officials, which is the dark blue. Officials mean public officer from line minister, like Minister of Water, Irrigation, Minister of Foreign Affairs. So still, together with politicians, we can consider this part of national government. Third, in orange come the expert, scientists. And even here, sometimes you have experts who are also advisor to national governments. So still, overwhelmingly, the national governments are those who are represented, heard, and given the floor in media debate. And last, you have civil society, like NGOs, or what we call ordinary citizens. And of course, for instance, ordinary citizens often were, for instance, farmers were describing their use of Nile waters. And you may argue, well, a farmer maybe should be considered an expert too. But here, and definitely I agree with that, but here we put them as ordinary citizens because the idea was that those voices were summoned, were brought into the conversation, not to suggest or to point at a solution, as usually we expect the expert should do, but rather to present a grievance, a problem, or so on. So voices count, and I think we still too often hear the same voices speaking on the Nile, and while other voices are silenced. And also this link to, and this brings me to my third point, which is about knowledge. As I said, being as a researcher, as a scholar, studying the Nile, and also being actively involved in consuming or in producing news and information about the river, we wanted to reflect and to investigate how scientific knowledge is used in those debates, how researchers, scientists are represented and portrayed in media debate. And we identified three figures, three examples, or to use a technical word, three ideal types. Those three figures do not exist in reality, but we use them to illustrate three different ways of presenting, in interviewing a scientist, a researcher, an expert, which reflect also three different ideas about the role that science and knowledge should play in society, and particularly in addressing environmental issues, like political and environmental issues like those related to the Nile. So the first figure is what we call the minister. The minister is most of the time a national expert. The data and the numbers that they present are most of the time unchallenged, and the main purpose of quoting those kind of experts is to legitimize specific claims and official government discourses on the sharing and the management of Nile waters. So in this case, the scientific facts, the expert tells the truth, present facts, at least from the national perspective. And it's interesting because in few interesting cases, these claims of those that we could call embedded expert, as they were the embedded journalism on war reporting, are confronted with the claims of their homologues in other riparian countries to illustrate the different positions at the negotiation table. The second figure is the prophet. The prophet is someone that points at an issue that the other people, the lay people, or also the politicians are not seeing yet. So it's used, here the interview to the expert is used to point at a new or a different topics. For instance, pollution. For instance, the impacts of climate change, which at the moment is considered to be overlooked in the public debate or in the diplomatic negotiation. So here the scientist as a prophet is seen as someone that can see something that the lay person or the politician does not see. It's also someone that can speak on behalf of nature, on behalf of water, on behalf of the river. The third figure is the one that I call God's eye view. Is a view from above to bring a solution to the conflict, to the for the resolution or the mediation in the conflict. Why God's eye view? Because most of the time, such solutions come from outside the political boundaries of the controversy. Often it's the voice of an international scholar, many times a lawyer, that from a third country comments the principle and the norms of international law that should be applied. A second example could be the use of the reference or the use and the display of remote sensing and satellite images. Again, convening the idea of a neutral impartial representation of the physical world from above. So here, science expertise is represented as independent, as neutral, as something above the parties, and sometimes literally above the parties, like for instance, in the satellite, in the remote sensing. So those are three ways the expertise and knowledge are presented, portrayed, and used in the media article that we studied. And I'm interested to discuss also with journalists, with other researcher colleagues, if they find themselves in these three types, or maybe we can add more, or maybe we can combine some of them. But the important message is, let's reflect on our role as expert, and let's reflect as a journalist, what do we think the role of knowledge and expertise should be in the controversy. So to conclude, I will conclude with a statement and also with a question for debate. So my first statement is that the Nile media debates are caught in what we call the nation trap. Because of the voice we hear, because of the cultural references and the way discourses are crafted, the main perspective remains the perspective of the national interest in the media. When it comes to the dam, it is all the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, for instance, it is always Ethiopia versus Egypt versus Sudan, and the three countries, the three entities are taken as unitarian, monolithic actors, each with its own national interest that represent the totality, the whole of the country, of the population. And of course, we know that media historically played a key role in building national identities. The imagined communities, the nations that Benedict Anderson called the imagined communities. And media were key in making the people imagining such community. So here come my question for the debate. Should the media, and which type of media, suggest, if not promote, different identities, different interests, different views of looking at the river and its people and its ecosystems? And in particular, I think we should ask ourselves which emotions, which voices, and which knowledge should be more present and we should promote in media debate to foster a culture of cooperation, to support mutual understanding and dialogue. And I think if we start thinking and practicing from these three specific items, maybe we can, which are emotion, voices, and knowledge, I'm sure we can walk some step forward. And I will conclude by making a practical proposal to try to avoid these nation traps, thinking about voices, knowledge, and emotions. Most of the time when it comes to the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, webinars or media reporting, the speakers, the voices are identified on the basis of their nationality, of their passports. You need to have an Ethiopian, an Egyptian, and a Sudanese. I'm well aware that this is not what is happening here in those debates that have been hosted by the Nile Basin Initiative, and that's why I'm very happy. But why not, instead of inviting people on the basis and interviewing people on the basis of their passport, we start interviewing people on the basis of their background. So every time we talk about the Nile, we should have maybe an hydrologist, an anthropologist, a natural scientist to reflect the complexity of the river, of its societies, and its ecosystem. So I think we need to export this idea, which are practicing here in those kind of webinars, also outside the world in the mainstream media. And this is just a practical proposal to begin with, to start to think about different narratives. And I'm looking forward to hear your ideas and comments on that. So thank you very much. I hear some. I heard that. So I'm looking forward the debate.
Well, what's that supposed to mean? Is that Fubalam? Well, thank you very much.
I think it was
Emmanuel,
Fubalam.
It's good, excellent.
Yes, sounded like him.
It was good. Good food for thought. A
Yes.
lot of things. Excellent.
Yeah,
Emmanuel.
it's a lot of,
Thank you.
that's right, a lot of food for thought, very interesting. And yeah, which emotions, voices, and knowledge shall we promote to transform the narratives? That's the question that you have left us with. And I think it's a very important question. I'd like to invite the participants, in case you have any questions, please do type them out in the Q&A feature so that we can gather those and present them, bring them forward to either of the presenters. I would also like to note that we are running a little bit behind, but I would like to thank you so much, Emmanuel, for this presentation. And I would like to also inform participants that IHE Delft and together with Water Journalists Africa, Info9, co-conveners for this session. So I'd like to acknowledge them for that. I would also like to announce that the Now Basin Development Forum is supported by the EU and the German government through GIZ, as well as the European Union, and as well as the World Bank and Cooperation in International Waters. I don't see our next presenter, Sylvester. Is he here? Sylvester, are you around? Otherwise,
yes,
I'll be
here.
calling upon Frederick. Oh, sorry.
I am here.
Okay. Okay, just 1 second. Let me just introduce you quickly. All right, Sylvester, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
Questions for Emmanuel, please do type them in the Q&A feature. For now, we are going to listen to Sylvester Domasa Lugutu. He's a distinguished media and digital trainer, having trained individuals and big institutions, including the University of Dodoma. He's mostly known as Tanzanian science and environmental journalist, and has worked in different capacities as a reporter, a producer, a presenter, a senior writer, and a news editor in various media organizations, all in Tanzania. He has written for The Guardian, the Associated Press, Buzzwire, and the German Press Agency. Sylvester is currently working as a digital media editor for the Tanzania Standard newspapers. He has won many accolades, including Outstanding Journalism for Accountability in Water Resource Management in Tanzania, as well as the Now Basin Initiative, a print category. Sylvester is also proud to inform that he is a husband and a wife, and a father. So you're most welcome, Sylvester.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I greet you from Tanzania. I hope everyone can hear me. Hello?
Yes, Sylvester, at least I can hear you. I hope everybody else can. Please go ahead.
Yeah, then that's good.
Please turn on your camera, Sylvester.
Okay, because of the internet issues, I was just thinking maybe
Maybe for 1 second or
okay.
1 minute, then you can turn it off.
Yes. Okay. Let me turn it on. Okay. I'm able to start a video. I can start a video because of...
Sylvester, please allow me to also remind you that you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Yes.
Okay.
My camera is not working again. Just working. I don't know. I think I will
Professor,
work.
just go ahead.
Yes, I will
continue.
I'll work things out later, and
Okay.
perhaps you'll be able to see me. Let me share my presentation. I hope, Jenny, you can see.
Yes, we see your screen. Put it in. Good, good.
Okay,
Go
okay.
ahead,
Is
please.
it okay?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
Yes. It is perceived that the coverage of media in various topics can have an influence on how such issues or such topics are perceived in the community and their effects. So I would be presenting on how the East African journalists, or rather media, really write about the Nile Basin Initiative, rethinking the public service journalism. And to take you through the agenda, I'll give a short introduction describing actually some of the key concepts and the area of focus, as well as the key questions. And then I will highlight the findings of the study, talking about how, to be specific, the East African media or journalist report about the Nile Basin Initiative and the transboundary cooperation. And we will talk a little more about the responsibilities of the journalists in the transboundary cooperation. And we will highlight the challenges facing the media industry in reporting the Nile Basin issues. Sitting as a reporter, as a writer, as an editor, and through the content analysis that I did through the database of some of the media industry, will be able to highlight these challenges. Specifically, the concepts behind the Nile Basin Initiative is, I would say, is not much well known or rather clear among media industries in East Africa. And in this report or article, I would say we corrected the data primarily from published articles in 5 newspapers, from The Guardian in Tanzania, Daily News in Tanzania, The New Times in Rwanda, the Standard in Kenya, and Daily Monitor in Uganda. But from the general perspective is that how the journalist, or rather the media industry, portray the Nile Basin Initiative as well as its activities is generally constructive, basing on the concept of the public service journalism, as one of the researchers once said, or rather described the concept of public service journalism as the way the news media provided their audience with information. So we analyzed these articles from various print media houses in East Africa, with a view of trying to understand the entire concept of public service journalism, as in reporting that contributes or that frames debate about issues of common concerns. And for Nile Basin Initiative, there are several concerns, and both of us, we understand, like the previous presenter was trying to highlight about the Ethiopian dam. And within the riparian states, there are concerns ranging from the financial stability to geopolitics, and from understanding the benefit of cooperation to exploring the people-to-people or rather state-to-state expectations of the cooperation. So with this regard and to the concept of the public service journalism, we expect media to play a major role in and becoming part of everyone's life. During our interviews with some of the editors in Uganda and in Tanzania, they pointed to the fact that media is now food that can strengthen or rather can weaken the cooperation. And like I said, the area of focus for this study tried to examine the articles published online, basically from the Daily News newspaper in Tanzania, the News Time in Rwanda, and the Guardian in Tanzania, the Standard in Kenya, and Daily Monitor from Uganda. And during the study, we tried to establish the sources of these stories. Where does the journalist source their stories to report? How do they report? Were the key questions to this study. And from the content analysis, we came across these key areas, court proceedings, reports that come from all other sources back to court proceedings. And there are issues of editorial commentary and opinions, but also there are sources that there are stories that originated from interviews. The journalists tried to do some interviews related to some of the Nile Basin Initiative and the related activities. But there are other areas which emerged predominantly was investigation, especially for newspapers like Daily Monitor, investigation and special reporting, in which it tallies straight forward with the concept of public service journalism. And in another case, we also got to understand some other things, like in the development construction Sumo hydropower project. What next did these East African countries get and report to the audience, in the East African? So other than that, we had also stories that were drawn from Nile-related meetings, like the forums and exhibitions. Some of reports also came from observations, and a few of the stories also were from press conferences. And we had some area where press statements also featured predominantly. But it was very unfortunate, despite a lot of reports that Nile Basin Initiative has been publishing. Of course, there are very few articles that are related to reports that are being published by the Nile Basin Initiative. So in this era of digital noise, disruption, disinformation, and the political pressures, we also expect a lot of information to come from the digital media, social media, and the like. but it is also very limited in the findings. To demonstrate how East African media, other newspapers, journalists reported in the Nile Basin Initiative, like I was saying, I think this is Brew, which is the standard newspaper, and Light Brew, it is the Daily Monitor, in which most of its reports happened to be investigative or rather special report-based publications, and in that case, the media industry, the media house had put more weight to give more voices, because we understand from the concept of journalism, a special report gives more voices than a press conference or rather a press statement. And in medias such as Daily News, The Guardian, the New York, the New Times, and the Standard, special reporting and investigation was very limited. For this reporting, this Nile Basin Initiative, you can see in this graph here, you see that the graph for most of the media houses, say the Standard Times, it goes down, up, down. In 2015, for instance, there are only few articles, less than 4%, and in 2016 it was just 1. And you see, comparing to Daily Monitor in 2017, and if you can see, 2017 it was up because we had a forum, and most of its articles came between February and May, where we understand in Tanzania, for instance, we have Water Week during that period. And before Water Week, we also have the Nile Basin Day. So these are events that actually spike reportage of Nile-based related activities. Basically, we all considered the fact and what are the responsibilities of media as in initiative concern, and we an agreement based on the advice from writers, the editors, and media-related databases that one of the key responsibilities of the media industry today is to unlock the information gap, mostly referred as informative law. Media's duty is to inform the people of what is going on with their leaders, our governments, the social world, the economy, the environment, and so forth. So that the people can be capable of making rational and accurate decision. But again, media is also tasked to communicate and connect. We understand media, if is wrongly used, we have experience to this. If there is used, and in some cases, it can become an instrumental for disinformation. and of course, disinformation of false and inflammatory messages in which those mentioned or rather messages does not promote transboundary cooperation or well-tempered dialogue and discussions. Just a few weeks ago, there was a debate about the Great Dam in Ethiopia, and the two parties didn't reach to what we expect. So we think media, if media could play a key part, could help in some way, get an understanding of what exactly the people should understand and why the decision didn't reach to what was expected. That helps the public not creating confusion, not creating their own messages and attitude. But we also expect that media is very critical in breaking down conflicts. The world of journalism has glass opportunity to promote understanding in questions. I would refer one of the critical example in Northern Ireland just before the Good Friday agreement, when media editors two sides decided to call for a call in which they asked members of the public to just call to peace. Yes, they received calls from who wanted peace. So we expect that the same weight of the media being able to communicate and connect, then also help in conflict within the transboundary cooperation. And lastly, we think from the study that media are just meant or this promote for diverse group, and these are also very critical in helping avoid conflicts, helping connecting the communities and improving information. So media must serve as platform to various groups in society. Therefore, they must be diversified, provide objective messages and biased content, and allow voices to be heard. And as you can see back from the presentation, investigation was just limited to Daily Monitor. Most of newspapers, most of the newspapers didn't have special reporting in which they limit most of the voices to be heard from other communities within the region. So if stories are based on press statement that comes from the Nile Basin Initiative alone, we think we may be ending to having most of promotionalism rather than constructive reporting for responsible journalism. After going through the responsibilities, then we thought to get to know the challenges that specifically face this media, or rather journalists, in reporting transboundary cooperation and related issues in the Nile Basin. And one of the immediate prompted challenge was the business model. Most media houses, they don't have special desks. Most of the newspapers in Tanzania, for instance, they don't have a special desk there. This desk is specifically for water reporting, and that affects giving updates for water-related Nile Basin issues and the like. But again, commitment from journalists themselves. Journalists are also not committed. We got to understand this from the discussion we had with editors. Journalists are not committed to presenting public-related issues of public interest. They are, because of lack of commitment, they are easily available for press release, press conferences that ideally they don't bring that connection within the corporation. But lack of press freedom too is also posing a great challenge to most newsrooms from giving that critical analysis regarding the transboundary cooperation. But again, like I said before, there is inadequate of knowledge within the journalists themselves. Media practitioners, they themselves doesn't know about the water management, the Nile Basin itself, the Nile Basin initiative itself. And that brings a lot of chaos in light about Nile Basin initiative. But there are also lack of logistical resources. Someone can be available to do the job, to travel to a place, to Lake Victoria from Dar es Salaam, for instance, to try to speak to fishermen and other people who are concerned about perhaps the activities, human activities within the Lake Victoria or nearby the Lake Victoria. But to that end, lack of logistic resources, transport, they affect their participation and activeness. But again, lack of fund. That is also specific. To be specific in running some of the special reporting, you need funds to be able to present the facts from the actual ground. Geopolitical factors also emerged as one of the challenges. Tanzania is looking into its own territory. Kenya is looking into its own territory. Uganda, the same, as well as other. They are not looking as a unified area that all benefit from the lake and from the lake and the river. We have interactions and groups in the Nile Basin, group of journalists in the Nile Basin, but the interactions are very limited. Journalists are not able to get day-to-day updates and those connectivity, or rather, I would say, interchange. And this has also been affecting reporting of Nile Basin activities. In conclusion, therefore, I would, from the study we conducted, journalists, media houses have continued to report constructively, and the only unfortunate part is that reporting of press releases is raising up, and it is in contrast with giving much voice to the people. And this could affect the ability for the media industry to help unlock cooperation opportunities. because the press statements are very limited to one or other specific key events. So to be able to improve the situation, we think Nile Basin Initiative must facilitate in establishing strong news sharing mechanism that can help media personnel from Tanzania, not only Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, and the rest, to share their stories. But again, we think from the concept of the public.
Sylvester, I hope
yes.
you're concluding.
Yes, I'm concluding.
It's gone beyond 10 minutes. Yes, please.
Yes. From the concept of rethinking public journalism, then media must share their best approaches and experience or other solutions, measures when reporting this media Nile Basin Initiative, as well as transboundary cooperation. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Sylvester, for that presentation. I just got one thing that struck me when you mentioned that in reporting, the media does not get much content from the Nile Basin Initiative in terms of the knowledge that we have generated. I hope we can find a solution to this. Of course, a number of other issues have come up. I'll not try to go through them, but I really hope that participants, you are sharing your questions in the Q&A. I see there's still few. I know the presentations have been very interesting so far, and the presenters will be very much ready to answer your questions. Please do post them there. And with that, I would like to request Sylvester, you stop sharing, and then I introduce our next speaker. We had Sylvester, could you please stop sharing?
Hello, Jane, this is my screen.
Yes.
This is my screen. This is for Frederick. I'm already sharing.
Oh, sorry, Frederick.
Yeah.
Okay, so Frederick, can I please introduce you first?
Yes, of course.
If you stop sharing, thank you.
Okay, so should I stop?
I can.
This on, yeah. Feel free, you can share if you want.
Okay, I will then just introduce you, maybe without sharing your bio. Frederick,
could you please unshare? Frederick, please unshare your screen.
Okay, I've done so.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, let me quickly introduce Frederick Mugira. He's an award-winning journalist, award-winning water and climate change journalist, media trainer, and development communication specialist. He's got over 10 years of experience, and he's the founder and MD of Water Journalists Africa. As I mentioned earlier, this session is co-convened with Water Journalists Africa. And Water Journalists Africa is a non-profit media group with over 700 journalists. He's also a co-founder of InfoNile, a geo-journalism platform that maps data on water issues in the River Nile Basin and overlays them into journalism stories to promote transboundary peace. In addition, Frederick works as an editor with Uganda's leading multimedia house, The New Vision. A National Geographic Storytelling Explorer and Pulitzer Center grantee, Frederick has reported from various countries in Africa, Europe, and Asia, as well as the United States. Among his accolades are the prestigious CNN MultChoice African Journalist Award and the UN Development Journalism Award. He has an MA in Development Communication, and he has also studied environmental journalism. So this is Frederick, and you're most welcome to your presentation.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to share my screen. Yeah. I hope you can see me. Hello, can you see me?
Yes,
So I
just
want
put it in
to
presentation mode,
start my
please.
presentation.
Yes, we can. Yes.
It is in
It's
presentation
good.
mode.
It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jane. My name is Frederick Mujira. As you well said it, I'm the founder of the Journalists South Africa and co-founder Info. I will be talking about cross-border reporting and focusing on collaborative reporting. This came out clearly from Emmanuel's presentation and the presentation of Sylvester, that we are reporting about one river, just River Nile, but we have segmented reports. Emmanuel said it, and he said Nile media narratives are caught in the nation trap. Again, Sylvester talked about transboundary cooperation that we do not see in the media. We talk about it, we talk about our countries cooperating, but we never talk about transboundary cooperation in the media. So Water Journalists Africa, as Jen said, it's a network of 700 journalists spread across 50 countries in Africa. We report about water, and we started in 2011. So in 2016, we started a flagship project, again with funding from NBDF, where with the support of Emmanuel, who has already given his presentation. And then we launched InfoNile. Now, InfoNile is a collaborative cross-border group of journalists with a mission to uncover critical stories on water issues in the 11 countries in the Nile Basin. We are about 500 journalists right now that under InfoNile. And since 2017, we've been partners with the Nile Basin Initiative in organizing, Nile Media Awards. We organized, we took part in the 2017 Nile Media Awards, supporting, and I as a person, I took part in the judging. I was a member of the jury, and also this year we were partners, and I took part in judging. I was a member of the jury. So my presentation is based on what we do at Water Journalists Africa, InfoNile, and also my observation of what I saw in the journalist stories as presented for awards in the Nile Media Awards. So those that took part in this competition. And we have so many journalists that sent in their applications, and probably at one time Jane will talk about it. So I was able to go through these stories and reflect on what I see. So I will reflect on what I saw in the stories, and also what we do at InfoNile and Water Journalists. So I just want to give you an example of what we do, an overview of what we do at InfoNile. Our approach is that we have a team of cross-border journalists that come together, investigate a common topic on environmental and scientific topics in a collaborative way. Now, the key point here, or the key words here are collaborative way, coming together as journalists, and you work, you investigate on one issue, on one topic. And these journalists are from different countries. Again, I want you to reflect on what Manuel said. Nile media narratives are caught in the nation trap. And also, I would like you to reflect on what Sylvester said, transboundary cooperation. How do we cooperate now in the media? Why do we leave it to diplomats, governments, and not even in the media? So what we do, we identify a theme of common and cross-border importance. Now, this is collaborative journalism in practice. At InfoNile, we identify a theme of common and cross-border importance. Now, in the past, we have looked at water scarcity during COVID-19. We have looked at climate change solutions. We have looked at wildlife trafficking and conservation. We have looked at biodiversity in transboundary lakes. we have looked at foreign land deals, and now these are cross-cutting from different countries. And then what we do, we source credible data that is cross-cutting across countries, because we want to make sure that we do stories that are backed by data. And this data, most of this data is from scientists that we are working with. So we have, for example, in the past, we have looked at water access data, rainfall and runoff, and land acquisitions. So what we do next, we call for pitches from local journalists who are members of our network to report in-depth stories. So we also provide funding where we have it, and then we give it to our network members, even those who are not our members. And then, these are from radio, TV, print, and online. And then after giving them these grants, we mentor and train these journalists in data journalism, environmental, and science reporting. We work with them to access data visualizations for their stories. And then again, the journalists in their respective countries, now 11 countries in the Nile Basin, we have had challenges, working with journalists in Eritrea, but we are trying. Other journalists, we have several journalists who have worked with in different countries, in Ethiopia, in Egypt, Uganda, and several countries. So local journalists publish, their media, their stories in their media houses. Often some, publish in local languages. But also in our network, we have a team of 5 coordinators based in different countries. So we also translate these stories to Arabic, Amharic, Swahili, and French, to have them published on InfoNile. And then so what we do with these stories, when they come from journalists now, they are almost in the final stage. We create cross-border multimedia projects, combining local stories and cross-border data analysis. As I told you, we already have data and then stories, and then I will bring them together to form multimedia projects. We incorporate geojournalism visualizations like interactive maps, drone images, and photography, satellite imagery, and graphics. And then, most of these come from journalists that go to the field and do the stories. And then, others are done by our partners. We have worked with Code for Africa in Kenya and South Africa to do visualizations of our stories. So later, we also create actionable interactive maps that we publish with our stories. But what I want to bring into your attention now is the kind of collaboration that we do with journalists as we work on all of this. Like, interactive maps, like we do drone videos. These are done by different journalists in different countries. When we bring them together, it kind of looks like it's one story. Remember, it is, for example, we're working on land deals across the Nile Basin, and we want to make sure you have different journalists in the region. You are telling just one story. I just put up this one for you to know what we did with land grabbing. We worked on a project called Sucked Dry, and we worked with 8 journalists in the region, different countries. In Ethiopia, we had one in Egypt, and Kenya, South Sudan, Uganda, and So what we did was to look at land grabbing by foreign investors, come into the Nile Basin and grab land. What happens to communities? Found out that communities are distressed and they, suffered, and the foreign investors take, with them the profits that they get from, what they invest in the region. And we realized that the foreign investors don't just come to grab land in the Nile Basin. They actually come to grab what is in the land. And you guessed it well, this is water. So what brings them to the Nile Basin, it's not just the land, it's what is in the land in there. And that is water. So, for example, we look at different investors that come to Egypt and come, especially investors who come to grow animal feeds. They grow it in Egypt and then ship it back to Middle East. We looked at investors who come to Uganda, for example. They come and they grow trees for carbon trading up near Lake Victoria, and then take with them the profits and disperse communities along the lake, and communities are just there suffering. Almost the same stuff. In South Sudan, for example, we looked at how a foreign investor came from USA, dispersed communities, and then didn't do anything with the land. When war started, he went back to USA and left the land idle. Almost the same thing that is happening in some parts of Kenya. And then in Ethiopia, we looked at how foreign investors are coming to disperse communities and grow flowers along the River Nile, and how this is affecting communities. So now, I just want to give you lessons learned. One from—
Yes, Frederick, sorry to interrupt, Frederick. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I see you're coming to a close. Please, I would like to request you to really conclude.
Okay, I will conclude probably with this slide. So I just want to give you the lessons learned. One, these lessons learned from the awards, when I look through the stories of the journalists, and also lessons learned as we work with journalists under our network in Infonal. So storytellers and media houses still choose to go it alone instead of collaborating. Journalists are not collaborating. They want to write their stories like, based on their countries. They don't want to cross to other countries and work with other journalists to investigate the same topic. Little or no exposure to collaborative journalism. You really find that when you read through the stories of the journalists, they don't know what to do with the collaboration. They don't know how to contact their fellow journalists in different countries and work with them. We found lack of networks of journalists reporting on these topics. Some of these networks are, national networks, and they are not cross-cutting. They don't go to other countries. In some countries, issues of transboundary resources are not open to the public. Yes, we know this. In some countries, you find, journalists cannot easily, write about water. Little budgets to take on expensive projects like this, cross-cutting, projects that go to different countries. There's some media houses don't have money to take on such projects. And also, again, journalists are not able to do this because themselves also, they don't have money. Yeah, so there's concentration on easy to report topics such as entertainment and politics. And when it comes to investigating big projects like climate change, land grabbing, journalists and some media houses, never mind, they don't care, they don't go there. Then competition versus collaboration. So media houses want to, stay competing instead of collaborating. Yeah, I will share my slide with NBI probably. We can see my other slides, other two slides that I was going to share. Thank you so much, Jane.
Thank you so much, Frederick, and sorry to have rushed you. But I would also like to note that your two slides, which are very interesting as well, could be very good also for tomorrow's session. So maybe you can find a way of incorporating those in our session tomorrow.
No problem.
So thank you very much. I'd like to request you to unshare, and I will not really try to comment or to summarize, but to quickly introduce our next presenter. And that is Mr. Abebe Yiga, is our next presenter. He's a water governance researcher whose research focuses on the Nile water conflict management and cooperation. More specifically, he's fascinated by entanglements between water, culture, and politics in transboundary water relations. Abebe is currently, he has been working as a researcher at the Water Governance Unit in the Blue Nile Water Institute in Bahir Dar University, Ethiopia. He's also a lecturer at the Department of Political Science and International Studies at the same university. He has an MA in social work and an MSc in water management and governance. His recent MSc thesis was about the role of water songs in water diplomacy. You're most welcome, Mr. Abebe Yiga. Please share your presentation.
Thank you so much. Is it okay?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Every day, in our everyday practice, we listen to songs of different kinds, songs of different style. But I would like to start this presentation by posing the question: Have you ever thought of the role played by songs in your life, in our life? Actually, this presentation is part of my MSc thesis, in which I have done with Emmanuel Infantini, and I have done under the supervision of Emmanuel Infantini and Professor Peter van der Zaag when I was at IHE Delft. So, for those who don't know, Abai is the name Ethiopians use for the Nile River. So Nile, we use Nile, we just academia or elites use the Nile. So the common people uses Abai, and in literature, in cultural space, and in religious space, it is not the Nile which is used, it is Abai. So I would use Abai. And I would not introduce myself. Thank you for introducing my who I am. Now I will directly rush to the presentation. Abai is an integral part of Ethiopian public space, cultural space, and religious space, and also in political space. So it is. There are lots of songs, lots of poems, and different movies have been produced on Abai. And before the construction of the GERD, there were thousands of songs, and after the beginning of the construction of the GERD, narratives about Abai have totally transformed. So the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has marked as the turning point for the shifting of narratives from blaming Abai to praising Abai. So more specifically, when we see narratives communicated through songs about Abai before the construction of the GERD, they mainly focus on praising the physical beauty of the river, coining the river as the national treasure, and more importantly, in Ethiopian popular imaginaries, Abai has been considered as the homeless river, and it is the river which is migrating to some alien places, and because of this, it's considered as the lost river. When we say the lost, it does not mean it has not been there in cultural, political, religious, and different spaces, but not in economic space. And for instance, when we see one song released at the mid of 1970s by Addis Ababa University's Theater Center, they said that Abai. Actually, this is very popular song in Ethiopia. It says Abai Yager Lemlem Yager Sisai Yala Geru Zemro Yale Karkro Abai Yala Haranuru. እስከ መቼ ድረስ ሲተረት ይኖራል አባይ ማደሪያ ቢስ ግንድ ይዞ ይዞራል? When we see its English version, it says that Abai, Abai, the nation's granary, the nation's treasure, singing out of his nation. Actually, Abai is considered as the mighty masculine, the mighty male masculine. So it sang out of then Abai lived, Abai having lived without a benefit. For how long would the tale be told that Abai, the homeless wanderer, not having a place to rest its debris? So the dream for constructing the home for Abai so that Abai would not migrate to a lane place was at the center of songs which were released before the construction of the guard. And Abai was by other artists like Jigayo Shubabao, commonly known by her nickname Gigi. She portrays Abai as the deaf river. The deaf river which did not listen to Ethiopians' plea when they were hungry, when they were thirsty. So Abai didn't contribute to eradicating the poverty. For instance, in her song, she said that, Abai, water of the river, you are not human. You do not listen to our plea. We are thirsty, we are hungry. You downstreaming water, neither you hear their call. Tell us what you find in the Egyptian cities, dear. She's praising the physical beauty of Abai. At the same time, she's just cursing Abai. She's just calling Abai as the deaf river. Why you are not contributing to Ethiopians? And an interesting thing is that she does not decline, she does not acknowledge how Abai is important to the downstream status. And when we see the songs after the beginning of the construction, the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, narratives have just shifted from portraying about the traitor as the deaf river to as the listening river, as the thankful river, as the peaceful river. Not only this, but also as the homecoming river, the river which is coming back home after centuries of being lost, and the reuniting river, the reuniting Ethiopians who are living abroad, diasporas with Ethiopia as well as with Ethiopians, and also when we see the guard, these narratives have just changed because of the guard, and the guard is portrayed as the hope for Ethiopians, and it is considered as an answer, the answer for the generations old question of building the construction of the dam on the river. And this project is considered as the reuniting project, reuniting Abai with Ethiopians and with Ethiopian diasporas. So when I see one excerpt of one song which is very popular by children, Abai Abai, it said that Nguguro Yivka ይገባል ውዳሴ ጉዞውን ጀምሯል አባይ በህዳሴ. It says that let the lamentation end, say let it end. Thanks for time for Thanksgiving. Abai has started a journey in a renaissance. Songs before the construction of the dam were just more of lamentation songs, but after that songs are just happy songs, and their songs are portraying Abai as the thankful, which needs to be given a gratitude, and this is because of the Renaissance Dam. And when we see another song by Masrin Bakala and Tadala Roba, who played the character of diaspora coming back to Ethiopia because Abai is coming back so that they could build the construction of the dam, the home for the dam. They say that even the intro of the song says, by calling diasporas, hey diaspora, please get together and return to your country, as Abai did. Abai that raised me, calling upon me. I hastened and returned with our river. When we see narratives after the GERD, they also promote benefit sharing with riparian states. They promote the dam as not only Ethiopian but also Pan-African project. Here I will play a sample of one song which was sung by 13 Ethiopian artists ranging from kids to legendary artists who are from different ethnic groups. Let me start if it is working or not. Okay, I think Girma. Kansiaga bukan babai budai kumbeka Ethiopia tawa kedus padang tai berast. I hope you might have listened this song. I hope you might not have encountered problem. He said that let's build the dam so that we can generate the light. Through that light, we can show to the world that Ethiopia can do it by itself. And also, this dam could help Ethiopia regain its place in the world order. It could help Ethiopia get a higher prestige, a higher respect. And it is more of happy song. The main takeaway messages are there are embedded emotions, and also there are embedded symbolic and cultural constructions that conquer public space and political space. The dam, the water is not just a mere water infrastructure, and the river Abai or the Nile is not just a mere river. So there are so many constructions, so many narratives attached to the dam and the river. So this needs to be taken into account while we are dealing with transboundary water relations. So this is all I have for this session. Thank you. I hope I am on time.
Thank you very much, Abibi. And yeah, someone has requested that you share the name of the song in the chat. So maybe
okay, I will. Definitely, I will. Okay.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I see. I know one of the questions from Emmanuel was whose emotions, and here you also talk about the fact that the river also has emotions. So that's some some relationship there. So people have asked some questions, but because of time, I would like to request that we do hold on to these so that we can have everything in the same segment where we have questions. In the meantime, may I request you, Abebe, to please stop sharing. And okay. I would like to go straight to the panel discussion. As I said, the questions that you have posed will be answered during the segment where we have question and answer. I would now like to quickly move to the panel discussion, and I would like to start by introducing the person who is going to be our moderator for this panel, and this is none other than Dr. Obalam Fekade. He's my colleague. He works for the Eastern Nile Technical Regional Office, which is based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. He's the head of Social Development and Communication Unit over there. He joined ENTRO in 2006. He was first hired under UNOPS as lead specialist for confidence building and stakeholder involvement project. Dr. Ubalam holds degrees in agricultural economics, development planning, and spatial planning, in addition to several training certificates in conflict management, development, communication, program management, among others, from the universities in Ethiopia, Germany, and the United States of America. Dr. Ubalam, please take over from this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I don't know how I'm gonna show up. Okay. I wanted to introduce my fellow panelists. Do you hear me?
Yes.
I'm trying to share my screen on my panelists. Oh, okay. So I have 3 distinguished panelists to help me out, trash out the key messages coming out from these very interesting sessions. My first, I'd like to introduce first Rehab.
Ubalam, sorry, can I share the slide?
Please.
Okay, I'll do that. Please stop sharing.
Yep, okay. So we'll stop it. Okay. Are you sharing now?
Yes, yeah. I am.
Okay. My first panelist is Rehab Abdel Mohsen. She's an award-winning science journalist. Her work appears in Science, DevNet, and Nature News, Nature Middle East, in the Niles, and she's a regular participant in our workshops and collaborates with us. So she's not a new face. I hope she will bring in a scientific perspective into this discussion. Next. Our next panelist is Dr. George Lugalambi. Lugalambi, if I mispronounce, I ask forgiveness. He's a communication and media specialist with extensive experience in designing, implementing, and managing communication strategies and programs in development, corporate, and social contexts. So a wide range of experience. He has handled assignments in lots of fields, natural resources, tourism, media development, you name it. So he is an all-rounded journalist, and he will be a valuable addition to our panelists. Next. Next, Jane. Yep. Mr. Francis Wajo, a dear colleague, is the Director of Policy and Regulation, Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation in South Sudan. He's a NILTAC member, an old hand in NBI, and he's also Executive Director of a Community Initiative for Sustainable Peace Organization, a local NGO operating in South Sudan and the rest of Africa. He writes articles to Juba Monitor and covering water, social, peace, and conflict management. He's also interesting, a gospel songwriter and a pastor. So there is a peace element in our panels. He holds MA in Media, Peace, and Conflict Studies. So these are our 3 panelists. And then I will...
Sorry, Ubalam, sorry, just to inform you and the participants that Francis has been having technical issues. Internet is not good where he is. So he's most likely not here unless he has joined later on. But he said, if in case he has failed to join, he says he will share his thoughts in writing. So if he's not here, then we do have 2 panelists.
So we will read them as they come in, and if they come in.
That's
so
right.
We had a very interesting session of presentations, very inspiring. So I have been given a set of questions to forward. Let me see. I will straight go to, I will focus on three main issues. I will come to it shortly. Now, as you see, the theme of this particular webinar is creating enabling environment for Nile cooperation, the media's role in creating enabling environment for cooperation. I want to zoom on this aspect. So if I could throw my first question to Rehab, unfortunately, I had planned to start with Francis, he's not there. So I will focus my question to Rehab. How this has been touched upon by Emmanuel and others also when it comes to the knowledge part. How has Nile Media been leveraging the massive data, water resources, Nile water resources related data and information generated by the Nile Basin Initiative? Has it been leveraged sufficiently? Is water science making a difference in how Nile issues are reported? This is for Rehab. And for George, I would like to ask this question. So the media is very important in shaping public opinion, in information brokerage. So how has Nile Media been playing a role in setting the right expectations on the part of various actors, the public at large? Because as you know, decision makers, policy makers are either hindered or emboldened to make constructive decisions depending upon they see the temperature of the public. How has it been shaping public opinion and setting expectations by setting the right agenda, by framing issues? The Nile Basin is facing critical common opportunity threats: climate change impacts, biodiversity loss, imbalances between demand and supply. So you can frame it as solvable problems or as insurmountable challenges which each country has to address unilaterally. How has the media played constructive role in setting the right tone for cooperation? This is for George. Let's start with these two and then I will pick up a few questions from the audience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, should I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. So regarding to the water science thing and how water science makes a difference in how journalists cover the water. Actually, I would like to have a step back and talking about science journalism in general as a concept. And let me open my camera. Sorry for the view. I don't know what's happening with the camera, but okay. So generally speaking, this COVID-19 pandemic showed everyone how science journalism is not well established generally and especially in the developing world. And water science is part of the science journalism, if we are talking. So we obviously noted that science journalists do not know some basics like how to read a scientific paper and what to choose and how to filter scientific paper and how to have a critical analysis when reading those papers and what to find and should I cover something that depend on a very small sample of human, like a study done by on a three humans, 3 people, should I cover this? So questions like this were very much focused or shown to the public during the coverage of the pandemic. Coming to the water science, we are facing the same challenge. Some of the papers and some of the scientific papers are failing into the same trap that mentioned by Emmanuel and Frederick, the nationalism trap. Some of those papers are not typically a scientific paper. They are not considering the scientific basis while doing their studies. And yet, as long as it goes with the national standards, the national directions, journalism do cover them. So this is one of the problems that we are having. Yet I find that, for me, I find talking to experts and to scientists, one of the very fruitful experiences. Trying to talk to politicians, it's a total different experience. Politicians tend to not to have a direct message. They are kind of frame it diplomatically. Unlike scientists, they give a very clear message if they accept on talking. Because again, one of the struggles that we have is convincing scientists to talk to a topic that considered a national security in most of the Nile countries, such as water and the Nile. So this is basically, I think, the issue that we are having while covering water from a scientific perspective.
Thank you, Rehab. Okay. This has been very helpful. Maybe there will be some follow-up questions to this. Let me move to the next. George, are you there?
Thank you, and thanks. I'll turn on my camera. I'm using my phone, so my video might be unstable, but I'll do my best to hold it steady. Okay, great. So William, you ask a very important question about the importance of the media in shaping public opinion, and you ask, that how has the media played a role in shaping public expectations about the Nile Basin? How does it play its role in setting the right agenda or setting the right tone for cooperation? So, listening, considering your question and also having listened to the earlier presentations by Emmanuel, Sylvester, Frederick, and Abebe, this also leads me to ask, to sort of reframe this and ask that what would be, a theory of change for the Nile Basin story? Because I believe that at the end of the day, this is really all about the Nile Basin story. That, in other words, how do you make the Nile Basin story resonate with audiences at the national and basin levels? And there is a saying that all politics is local. And I would like also to harness that saying to say that equally all journalism is local. And so to the extent that you can localize the Nile Basin story, I think you begin to move to a level where you can make the Nile Basin story actually resonate. And any limitations in localizing that story, in making that story resonate, at the national level, at the local level, it's going to be really very difficult, for people to buy into this agenda, the agenda, for Nile, for basin-wide cooperation. So for me, the very first thing is about how do you transform the Nile Basin story in such a way that it resonates with national audiences, or that it resonates with media consumers at the national level. And I do bear in mind the conclusion that Emmanuel ended with, that the Nile media debates are caught in the nation trap. For better or worse, I think that is really the starting point, because unless the Nile Basin story resonates at the national level, it's really going to be difficult to promote basin-wide cooperation. So for me, that is a very important thing. Another fundamental point that I also want to go to is, in journalism, there are what we call news values. And one of the most fundamental news values is the value of proximity, and proximity is not just geographical. Proximity is also emotional. It can also be social. There can be emotional proximity. There could be social proximity, but there could also be geographical proximity. So if you look at the kind of reporting, the evidence that was shared by Emmanuel and Sylvester, you look at the kind of reporting, in Egypt, in Ethiopia, and across all these countries, emotion becomes a very important aspect of the narrative, and you can't run away from emotion, because emotion is a very important aspect of how the story gets framed. We know that facts are important, but facts, as we know, do not speak for themselves. Someone has to speak for the facts. Facts have got to be interpreted, and facts are interpreted, with a certain framework. So the audiences and can come to these facts, with their own narrative, with their own thinking, with their own, a baseline of knowledge and information and emotions that they use to interpret, the facts that have been presented to them, the facts that are presented by the scientists. Take the example, today we're in COVID-19 and we are talking about vaccination, but also look at the kind of, how the science of vaccination is being interpreted, the science of vaccines is being interpreted by very different, through very different emotional lenses, ideological lenses, geopolitical lenses. So, and I think reporting about the Nile Basin has to come, a journalist has to appreciate, or media actors have to appreciate, and the people actually who analyze and observe the media will have to appreciate that all these factors play into how, the Nile Basin story is going to be told. The emotions, Baby talks, presents very interesting information about how song, as a cultural emotion also plays a factor in how the story of the Nile is being told. So, I would say that the story of Nile Basin Cooperation, how we tell that story and the impact of that story has to be understood in what are those things that influence the way the story is told. So facts are very important, but you also have to appreciate that facts are interpreted in a very specific context, and so people come with their own geopolitical, emotional, and all sorts of lenses to interpret those particular facts. So finally, the point for me is for the journalist that is reporting this story, and Frederick went at length about the kind of resources that they provide journalists to be able to tell this story in a constructive way. Data is very important. Evidence is important. Working with scientists and professionals and experts is very important to be able to transfer knowledge and evidence and the data from the expert domain and interpret it and digest it and break it down for journalists to be able to transmit it to their audiences. Then that way, if a journalist in Kenya or Tanzania or they actually use and make connections, with their own local situation in order to be able to appeal and make the story actually resonate with their local audience. Over to you, Wubalen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. This is very interesting. Coming to emotions and facts, this is very interesting. This leads me to my next question, perhaps to either of you, George or Rehab. Emotions are very important. Data and information and science is also important. Now, how do you create the right balance? Because there is a conflict trap. For example, as you know, in failing news, conflict is more sexy, if you like. It sells faster, it draws attention. It has a comparative advantage, if you like. So I always complain to Emmanuel, for example, that international media reporters day in, day out about looming conflicts, ongoing conflicts or disagreements more have you ever seen the international media dedicating 1 or 2 days to cover the cooperation of 20 years under NBI and the range of products and positive achievements that have been delivered? No. So how do you help? While I appreciate the role of emotions, Manuel referred to knowledge and voices and emotions, but the most important thing is whose voice, whose knowledge, whose emotions. Usually the most powerful voice, knowledge, and emotions are the ones that flood the media. How can we leverage positive emotions, if you like, create a more enabling environment?
I think quick point for me is that it all depends on how you position yourself as media, as journalists. I believe that journalism and journalists are moderators, and to play an effective role as moderator, you need to stand from an objective position. And I know that in journalism we have a lot of these debates about what is objectivity, and I don't want to go into the complexities of that. But for me, media as moderator, so that means that you can or that you can actually take a position that is evidence-based and look at the evidence. If you're assessing the benefits of Nile Corporation, what does the evidence say? And looking objectively at that evidence and weighing that evidence and being able to digest that evidence and turn it into facts and stories, that can be told without really sensationalizing. And you're right, sensation is a very powerful force, and it's very easy to go the sensational direction. But I think you can also sensationalize in a positive way, whereby you actually make information attractive, without necessarily jazzing it up to making it tell a story that is not really based in fact, but really making it attractive and appealing, and using the kind of tools that Frederick is talking about that they're using with InfoNile. Use all those tools, all those digital visualization tools, to be able to tell a story, to be able to translate science, into nuggets of information that are digestible for audiences. So I think if you position yourself as a journalist, as a moderator, as an objective moderator who weighs the facts and the emotions and look at the positive emotions, that are going to be able, to capture the story and tell it in a constructive way, I think for me, that is an important way for a journalist to position themselves. It's a moral issue, it's an ethical issue, but it's also an issue of discipline, a journalist approaching journalism as a discipline, because a discipline requires that, you weigh the facts, you factor in the relevant emotions, the positive emotions that are going to be constructive in terms of building a story and a constructive narrative. Thank you.
Well, I raising this point actually made me think, Wabalim, that maybe we need to cover how media is covering conflicts. Like media have been reporting causing a lot of trouble when it comes to conflict. We see how what happened in Rwanda and the genocide in Rwanda, and how media played a role in conflict. It was basically, I think, the main driver to violence and what happened in the country. So media is can be a tool or a driver to violence. It is proven. So maybe this is in itself something that need to be covered, need to be so that we raise the awareness of people and the media of how important the role they are playing, and to be balanced while covering issues that include conflict. But does this mean that we should ignore conflict? I don't think so. I believe that it is something like looking at this, the example of the glass of water, and how pessimists see it as a half empty, and how optimistic people see it as half full, and both are saying the truth. But for journalists, both are not truth, not totally truth. the truth is that this glass of water is half full and half empty. So we have conflict, we have disagreement, and yet we have cooperation, and both should be covered. And covering one part of it doesn't mean that you said the truth. This is not what's happening on the ground. What's happening on the ground that we have a negotiation, let's say, and this negotiation is going through some disagreement, yes, but also we have some efforts to make it work. We have some examples of other negotiation from other countries that take the same step or maybe closer step that need to be covered also. So I mean, doing this balance is a must, is not something that we can ignore as a journalist. Otherwise, it is. I think we are not doing what said by my colleague here, George, about being objective.
Thank you, Rehab. This is a very beautiful reply. It is also in order to come back to your half full, half empty glass, which are both true. To get a complete picture, you need the narratives from both ends.
Exactly.
So including as many range of voices as possible brings us up to a certain semblance of reaching the objective truth, if at all. Yes. But the most important thing is there is, George referred to ethics and responsibility on the part of journalists. You also referred, you can play both constructive or destructive roles. So the inclusion, there is one question from Jonathan, either one of you can answer this. So in order to expand the range of voices, actually the theme of this workshop is creating enabling environment for Nile cooperation. So this is a value-driven undertaking, it means. We are for cooperation, for a positive agenda. So that doesn't mean that we are downplaying or ignoring the reality of conflicts. You said it beautifully that this is interaction. Interaction goes both directions. It is not only peace or only conflict, or cooperation and non-cooperation. It is a spectrum, as in life. So there is a Jonathan question. What are the limits to reflect ordinary people's voices in the mix? What is limiting us, the journalists, from reflecting the ordinary people's voices? So this goes also to the presentation of the Emmanuel's, whose voices matter, whose knowledge, whose emotions should be portrayed prominently. So if you could answer Jonathan's question about how to provide ample space to reflect ordinary people's voices in the media.
I believe from my humble experience that seeing what's happening in its context, not only the political context, the social context, the historical context, is what helps journalists focus on cooperation and bring in the voices of sometimes marginalized citizen or even normal citizen. So how can we bring those voices, and why journalists are ignoring them? Because we cannot read this context. Most of the journalists who cover water cover it because they are working in the what we call it news sector in the journalism. It's something related to the system of how media works in the country. So I think I was thinking about this yesterday, actually, why the people, the farmers, for instance, are not presented at all on the media. I can't hear their voices. I don't know how farmer thinks about what's going on in the Nile. So yes, there is a shortage in this in this in what you mentioned, and I think this gap need to be filled with good journalism, and good journalism yeah, need to be developed more in our countries in general.
Wonderful. I think we are coming to a close. I am being indicated that my time is up. I will have to provide the last few moments to Sarah, who will give us a summary of the gist of this very fruitful presentation by all the presenters and also the comments from the panelists. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Wubalem, and also from my side, thanks a lot to all the presenters, panelists, and other speakers, and also participants who posted their questions in the chat. I've been tasked with summarizing the discussion today. Let me attempt to capture some of the key messages. There will be a report of this session uploaded on the website, also alongside the presentations, and also I believe the recording. We will reiterate with the different presenters and the panelists, and then the condensed key messages will be available publicly online as well. So we had a keynote presentation that was really focusing on media narratives on the Nile, and especially the GERD. And there I think the key outcome was that facts and emotions are nearly impossible to separate in the media. So there's different emotions that journalists might be able to tap into, but also different voices that they might want to draw on, and also different types of knowledge and different expert voices that journalists can select in order to also shape and transform the narratives that we have on Nile Basin issues. And that might help Nile media to move beyond what Emmanuel called the nation trap, which, yes, according to his team's analysis, a lot of media outlets are sort of stuck in these days. We then moved on to a couple of paper presentations. First of all, on how East African journalists write about the NBI or Nile Basin issues in general. And the findings here were that only a few media outlets in East Africa engage in in-depth editorial and investigative reporting on Nile Basin issues, and that there's a risk of promotionalism in Nile Basin reporting, so simply reprinting press releases from the NBI, which of course, is not necessarily the purpose of also supporting the media work of NBI, and also what NBI is trying to achieve. So challenges for media professionals in the region here include, partly a lack of commitment, but also maybe more fundamentally, the business model of public service journalism, limited press freedom, lack of knowledge and logistical resources and funds, and also some geopolitical factors. Sylvester suggested that there's an exchange needed amongst journalists and editors on the nature of public service journalism, and that NBI also has the potential to share more actively the knowledge generated by the organization and in the basin. We then moved on to looking at the example of InfoNile, and I think here the key message was really about collaborative storytelling and collaborative journalism, and how InfoNile has tried to promote that in the region, but that storytellers and media houses are still reluctant to or prefer to go it alone instead of collaborating, was the way he phrased it, and that there is still a lack of networks of journalists reporting on these topics in a collaborative manner. I think this one, there will be a nice follow-up also tomorrow. We have at the same time another session on, well, that will mainly focus among on the partners that are currently involved in supporting media engagement and journalism, also collaborations in the basin. So we'll definitely be picking on some of the topics and suggestions there. Our final paper presentation focused on Ethiopian popular songs on the Nile. And there we looked at how the narrative in music surrounding the Abai has changed in Ethiopia from before the Gerd, when it was portrayed as more of a beautiful river, national treasure, a wandering, almost lost river, sometimes even a traitor, to after construction of the Gerd began, where the focus was more on homecoming, a reuniting river, providing a way out of poverty, but also focusing on a Pan-African aspect of collaboration and shared benefits. So yeah, here again, the strong emotional, cultural, symbolic voice that can be carried to the public through other media than purely journalism, which we have used to talk about. So I think this was a nice additional perspective. Thank you for that. We had our panel discussion where we focused a lot on how scientific data can be portrayed in the media and more clearly conveyed. Also the challenges of focusing on politicians' voices in reporting. The value of having a localized narrative to make stories and narratives resonate more with national audiences, maybe on a non-political level, in a non-political sphere, but making it more relatable. And that facts are essential, but I interpret it in a very specific context. So again, the importance of emotions and geopolitical perceptions. Also that objectivity in media can be tricky. And that evidence-based reporting can help turn towards more forward-looking stories without sensationalizing narratives. And journalists can cover how how the media covers conflict currently, was one of the suggestions from Rehab, would be an interesting angle on the responsibility of media, but the conflict also can't be ignored in reporting and is part of a truthful and all-encompassing coverage of now-based issues. One of my tasks is to try and distill what I've just summarized into some key messages. So I've tried to narrow it down to 3. One of them was drawing on Emmanuel's quote of Nile media is caught in the nation trap. So here, I think this portrays that the media community holds an enormous influence over shaping public opinion and national narratives. But that it has also remained inside national silos, and that a wider variety of emotions and voices, including localizing narratives or drawing more on scientists, is needed in order to transform the current narrative in the Nile Basin. A second message that came out of this was that scientific and fact-based coverage of Nile Basin issues is essential. It does face its challenges, but that the NBI can potentially also seek to play a bigger role in brokering scientific information and knowledge between the experts and the journalists. I think that's something we can explore tomorrow. Then the last key message that I drew from this is that more collaborative storytelling can really help in telling different sides of the story, and that NBI and partners could support the media in this endeavor. Again, something I think for tomorrow's discussion. So on that note, I would like to conclude. Thank you all again for your inputs and invite you to join our session, which is essentially a bit of a follow-up session to today's discussion at 10 a.m. East African time tomorrow. Thanks a lot, and then maybe I'll hand over back to Jane for final closing remarks. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Sarah, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank really all the presenters and the panelists. It has been a very interesting session. I know that participants had some questions. Some of them we've not been able to bring them forward to you presenters. But we have collected them, and maybe we can have them answered and incorporated within the report. Once again, thank you very much. And I would just like to take this opportunity to inform everybody that the Nile Basin Development Forum closing ceremony has been pushed forward. Initially, it was 29th to 30th April, but now it's going to take place 6th to 7th May 2021, and our host country is Ethiopia. And as I said earlier, during this closing ceremony, we shall also be recognizing journalists for balanced reporting on Nile Basin and Nile Cooperation issues. So I hope you can be able to attend. It will be virtual. So do remember, we'll be sending out more information on this so that you can be able to attend this closing ceremony. So thank you very much. And I guess we'll be seeing most of you again tomorrow at 10 a.m. as earlier informed by Sarah as a follow-up session. Goodbye for now.
Thank you. Goodbye.